Well, this is the time of year when all of our attention turns to the weather and the conditions that can mean either better than expected results or some challenges we were not expecting. And that's why Tyler Harp with Syngenta joins us today to talk about Syngenta's cleaner and greener fungicides. Now, Tyler, some parts of the country have been drier than others, some wetter than normal, and probably more at risk for some diseases. Let's start with, why do fungicides with plant health benefits, which we kind of expect they all do have, but as an example, Syngenta's cleaner and greener fungicides, why is it important for them to deliver whether it's drier or wetter?
Well, because the Syngenta plant health fungicides actually have a newer technology contained within them, which are very powerful as a stress mitigator. So we've done large on-farm comparisons between a product like Maravus Neo, a Syngenta plant health fungicide, and an untreated plot. We'll compare those, and we don't make it a situational decision like, well, is it going to be wet? Is there going to be disease? We've just actually applied these products essentially at tassel every year on corn and about R3 on soybean. And we've got hundreds of these plots across the corn and soybean belt. And we're showing consistent yield preservation, not only in the presence of diseases, but also abiotic stress, which would be environmental stressors like heat or drought. And so we're seeing a yield preservation average of about 14 bushels per acre when there's really no disease or very low disease. And we're seeing 15 to 18 bushels if there's some disease included in there. So, of course, it's still a very profitable return on investment.
Now, you were in our region here recently, got a chance to talk to several people about what's going on with our particular weather pattern. What are some of the bigger concerns?
Well, first of all, every county in Indiana actually had the warmest average temperature from December through February on record, which has been 130 years or so. That actually contributes to the overwintering inoculum that's in the field. We can be more prolific and have a higher spore load when the season starts if the conducive conditions occur for that disease, which in many parts of Indiana, you've got some wetter conditions. We've already seen some leaf spots start up, and I'm talking about gray leaf spot and northern cornleaf blight, and especially tar spot. That's the one that's got everyone's attention, because remember in 2021, in northern Indiana, you had a lot of it. We were looking at 50 to 80 bushel losses.
Yeah.
And the conditions are conducive this year compared to the last couple of years. And so you want to make sure that you have a fungicide online, because otherwise there's a lot of yield potential that could be lost.
So as we monitor our crops, farmers typically are waiting to kind of make a decision about, do I have a problem? Is it worth the ROI? Give us an idea. What do you recommend growers consider when they're making that final decision to put a fungicide application on?
Well, the product choice really matters. And that's one thing that getting folks and growers to understand this stress mitigation potential, because if they're thinking about it only as a situational decision, is it going to be wet? Am I going to have disease? Am I going to be able to preserve any yield here with a fungicide? They're actually not thinking about all of the value that these plant health fungicides offer in terms of their stress mitigation. The Maravus Neo and TrivaPro and these Syngenta plant health fungicides are really the best tool out there for preservation of yield potential for a crop that, by the time these applications are typically made, you've already invested 95, 98% of your resource into that crop. So why wouldn't you use the best tool out there to preserve that yield potential? And again, if tar spot comes, you're clearly going to have some yield preservation. But if it dries up and doesn't come, and we have a very dry August into September, you're going to get a yield preservation from that because of the stress mitigation potential of the adaptive technology to conserve water and nutrient use, keep those leaves greener for longer periods of time. And that's where that extra late season grain fill comes from. So it's really the best tool out there. And these are not your father's or your grandfather's fungicides. These newer plant health fungicides with this important stress mitigation potential really have changed the dynamics of what these products can do. Again, we see that's profitable for a grower to do that to preserve their yield potential, whether it's corn or soybeans. We know that commodity prices have softened, and we know a lot of growers are wanting to manage input costs. But I ask, are you in the business of saving money, or are you in the business of making money? If it's about making money, then it's about making the right investment at the right time. And that's what you'll get from a Syngenta plant health fungicide.
You mentioned a couple of different fungicides for specific reasons, but do fields usually have more than just one disease that can benefit from one of the Syngenta cleaner and greener fungicides that have broad spectrum control in them?
I'm really glad you brought that up, because another disease that's become really prominent, especially in Indiana, is a disease called Gibberella ear rot, and it's showing up in corn. And the biggest issue with that is it colonizes the grain and it leaves behind mycotoxins, which are toxic to cattle. And so they measure for that mycotoxin when they're assessing the grain quality, which is also referred to as vomitoxin. But that's from this specific fungus that causes this Gibberella ear rot. You can't always see it on the ear. The good news is that Maravus Neo is one of the only premium fungicides that has gibberella ear rot and fusarium ear rot. It's not very common that fungicides work on fusarium. That's one of the more difficult diseases to control. There's only a few limited solutions. And so we feel very fortunate that Maravus Neo is, again, one of the few premium fungicides people are using that has this on the label. So you're also going to get protection from something you may not even see.
So just curious, cleaner and greener fungicides. Explain that. Why are you hanging everything on that?
Well, because when we say cleaner and greener, that's how we describe the performance of a Syngenta fungicide. Cleaner, of course, is that potent, long-lasting disease control, and greener refers to those plant health benefits. So we really want that plant health to be top of mind, because in terms of yield preservation, it's just as important as the disease control component of these fungicides. So when we say cleaner and greener, we're giving a nod not only to the disease control piece, but also to those very important plant health benefits.
Tyler Harp with Syngenta, thanks so much for your insights. Very interesting this morning. Appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure.
Podcasts by Federated Media.